Hello, 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 and welcome to the College of Creation. My name is Dan.
And my name is Michael.
We are Dungeons & Dragons DMs who love to homebrew items, rules, creatures, and features for D&D. Michael, how are you doing today?
I am just full of peace of mind today.
That's great. That's great.
How are you?
I'm good. I had a time getting this particular option together. This was a little bit of a rough week for me, but that's okay. I came up with something eventually, and that's all that matters, right?
Last week, that's how I went, right?
Mm-hmm.
Last week, you had your idea within minutes, it seemed, and it took me the entire week.
Quick.
And this week is the exact opposite. I felt great. Right when we rolled it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and that is the idea I stuck with. So this is great.
That's
we
so
both
good.
had back-to-back great and rough weeks.
Yeah, hey, I mean, that just goes to show you what this process is like. For some people, an idea is going to just like, inspiration just strikes. There's no work, there's no effort. But I went through 3 or 4 versions of a thing that I scrapped completely. I hated it. I was like, this is not good. So I got rid of them, and I finally landed on something. So it took a lot of digging and finding things that were interesting and taking a lot of inspiration from outside. I ended up reading a bunch of other games and concepts from other sources, but I'll get into some of that when I actually talk about it. For a reminder for the listeners, last time we rolled on our big D20 table of homebrew prompts that come from our listeners and our community for a monster that moves creatures around the battlefield.
Very interesting.
And that's all it was.
Yeah.
And it didn't really specify like how it moves creatures, which creatures it moves. Does it move its allies? Does it move itself? Does it move its enemies? And how does it move them? Is it teleportation? Is it pushing? Is it, dragging and lifting and throwing around? Who knows? It was very open-ended, and I thought it was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I did not really do that, but I did make something that I like, so...
Hey, man, as we've said so many times before, if you have the prompt at heart, sometimes the imagination just takes you wherever it's going to take you, and that's okay.
Well, and another thing is that, like, sometimes you have a prompt, and I'm sure we get a lot of prompts from folks who, maybe they have their own idea, or maybe they just, want to present us with something that's challenging or something that might inspire us to do something.
Right.
And, sometimes that inspiration will come out in an unexpected way. Isn't going to look like what you thought it was going to look like, but that's how inspiration works sometimes. You make something that is 2 or 3 or 5 degrees separated from where you started, and that's fine,
Yeah. Doesn't mean it's
even.
a bad creation. Oftentimes, I feel like it's a better creation because it's more of a process, more brain power to get there.
Yeah.
And I love that. So I'm really excited to see what you made today.
At this point, also, it's worth noting we're so deep into this project now. I was looking at our sort of shared files here, and this is the 14th episode. There are very few times when we only made one thing.
Correct. Usually at least 3 or 4.
We have a crazy amount of things here that we've created, you and I, together, collaboratively, or on our own. It's crazy. I don't think I've ever homebrewed this much stuff in this small of an amount of time. How about you?
I agree. I too have not done that. And it's very cool because this is a strange project, right? We both are very collaborative DMs, collaborative creators. And this is the first project that I've worked on that I'm not making something either by myself or with a player. And it's been very interesting to see the collaboration come from another source that's doing the same thing. Like, this is the first time that I've had that experience, and I think that's why it's so some weeks it's not easy, but that's why it's easier to kind of have this stuff come out because we're collaborating with the prompts from each other and from the community, and collaborating with each other as we give each other notes and constructive things to add into our creations. This is a really cool thing. I had very little expectation going into this on episode 1. I knew that I enjoyed homebrewing, and I knew that you enjoyed homebrewing. I had no idea that this far out now, 14 episodes in, I'd still be looking forward to, like, every week. I'm like, what's the new prompt going to be this week?
Yeah, right.
I need to start digging into this new prompt. Do you have similar feelings?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that for me, I'm absolutely still thrilled every week, and even the process of doing the creation is becoming more and more interesting to me.
Yeah.
You know, I think that noticing the way that you approach things has entirely, like, you're going to see today, the way that I approached it was I started making so many things that were like my approach, that were like, okay, let's do something serious. Let's come up with like a core mechanic, and then we can, you know, develop variations on that mechanic as part of building out this stat block. And I just kept running into a wall of like, nothing felt right, nothing felt fun or exciting. And then I just kind of let go of some of that and thought about how to approach this from a perspective that's closer to the way that I find you often approach things, which is very experimental and also really whimsical and a little bit weird, a little bit like out in left field. It's trying something that like you wouldn't necessarily think to bring into the normal structure of the game. And I love that experimentation, that idea of like, let's just, you know, let's present an idea that is out there a little bit, and we just want to see how it goes. We just want to like give it some room to see if it can be anything, and I love that. So that level of whimsy, or how do I want to say it?
Freedom.
Yeah,
You have loose rope.
yeah. It's a lot more untethered.
Yeah.
The creation process went so differently once I kind of took that approach, and I think you can sort of slowly see me building in some more of that over the course of the weeks that we've been working on this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
The Spell Scroll alternative, I added in a lot of that vibe as well. And I think that, you know, just adding that to my tool set is huge, has been so fun and cool to see. And similarly, I think that all the prompts have also been really interesting. They've been things I would never have thought to make on my own.
That's huge. It's huge. Going from a starting point that you would not think of yourself is just the biggest game changer to keep this going. You know, that's usually what we get from our players, that different perspective, and having it come from a source that, you know, a lot of the prompts come from people that we know right now. We're still relatively new, but some of them don't. And it's really interesting. Also, I must say, totally appropriate for you to say that your style has changed. You've added tools to your tool set through this time. Because this week I was very Dan in my structuring. I was so proud of myself. A lot of times, if I have an idea, it is more out of the box, and it goes way too far, right? I just can't turn off the faucet in the worst way. And this week, it was very concise. It has a core rule that really applies to everything within the write-up. And I was like, Dan would be proud of this.
I'm so excited now. I'm absolutely thrilled.
And you know what? I went back into the stat blocks and I removed things after I...
oh my goodness.
Yeah. I trimmed the fat. And I said, this is exactly what Dan would do. This is great.
I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is... It's because I've started also going back through some of the old creations too. And I think one thing that we definitely want to do here and want to make available to our listeners, especially to Patreon supporters. We thank you all so much. So we want to fix up some of these things. And I think going through some of my old ones and looking at them again, just with like a little bit fresh eyes, and now this new fresh perspective of like, you know, what did Michael say about this? What did Michael enjoy about this? And how do I think he would have addressed this? Has, I think, livened up the creations that I looked at immensely. They're so much more, they feel better and more cohesive now looking at them fresh and like thinking about this is something that I can add to that really brings in some special sauce, you know?
I've had this same exact experience at an undetermined date. There will be a full compendium of these things available.
Yeah.
So I have been going through my first, 3 to 5 creations, and I've done the same thing that I almost did naturally this week, was find the things that made sense but weren't necessary. Either reworked them or changed the core mechanic of how they worked, and it feels better. It feels more playable. It feels like it is more concise, more readable, more digestible, and that's the thing that you came with out of the gate, and I did not necessarily come with.
That's okay. Yeah, I think it's been very cool to see all of the differences in how we approach and things like that, and build those things in together. Do you have a favorite creation? I know we talked about favorite creations that we've made in general. Do you have a favorite creation from the show thus far that you've made?
I don't know. It might be recency bias now because I've just looked at it, but I think my barbarian, I really like the spores barbarian, the Sporeborn.
Yeah.
Especially now that I've gone back in and reworked it and made it a little bit more palatable. I'm really interested to see how that would play in a game. But I also like the rogue that we made last week.
Yeah.
The one that I struggled the most with, right? That was the one that I really went through it to get to the end.
The one you made was so fun. It was so wacky and good.
Thank you.
I liked it a lot.
Thank you. If you had showed me all of our recordings a year ago and said, which one of these is going to be your favorite, it would not have been either of those.
Yeah.
I probably would have said the spell scrolls or the talismans or something like that. But looking back now, I think those two subclasses are my favorite. What about you?
For me, I think my favorite thing that I've made is the monk feature, the monastic techniques.
Yeah. Those were good.
I love it so much. I also just looked at it again recently as well to sort of see if I can, adjust a few things. And I did, but I just liked so much the versatility options that it makes, because
so good.
We're here recording in sort of the lead up to new 2024 core rule books for D&D being released, with kind of what feels a little bit like a soft launch of 1D&D. And they've made some adjustments to monks that I think are really good. They've taken away the key point cost for certain things. They've made it free to dash and disengage. But they didn't add what I think is missing from the class, which is this versatility and the capturing of basically anything active that isn't centered around unarmed combat. Any active choices, not passive features that capture this other side of a monk, which should just be this like sense of perfect self and like self-realization, and all of this stuff should like be such a huge part of that. And I just don't think that the 1D&D version goes far enough to just like expand and make it its own super cool thing. So my monk feature is the thing that I like the most, and when I think about the things that I've made here, the thing that I think this is just going to be a thing that I allow all monks to do forever.
It's such a good feature. Yeah.
Anyway, I won't talk about that anymore, but I do really like a bunch of the other stuff that you've made. Some of my favorite creations that you've made are the Shield of Gonging. Love it. Incredible. Best item that you've made the whole time. It's so good. I don't know why I love it so much. I just think it's so great. I also loved your Rancor creation.
Oh, thank you.
I think primarily because of how I think you so seamlessly you managed to take the inspiration, make something a little bit different that wasn't only what I think is a really cool and interesting monster stat block, but also a fully built, ready to roll encounter. Like, I could take just those 2 pages that you sent I could run such a cool one shot or two shot with just that.
Yeah.
Because it writes itself, and I think that the way that you I think approached that was this like really lore heavy, story heavy approach that I think lent itself perfectly to exactly that.
Well, thank you. The monk feats, absolutely. I think one of the best things that you've created thus far. With true oneness comes ultimate choice, right? And that's not what the monks provide right now, and that's what you provided with that feature. So good. I also really enjoy your fighter's block.
Ah, thanks.
Thinking back to like episode 5 or 4 or what earlier on.
Yeah.
I love that you made actual blocks, like rollable dice that can. I just thought that was so clever. Where I was whimsical to the point of absurdity, I think. Maybe too far off the beaten path. Yours were right in the right lane. A die that can become different weapons, or a die that can give you different fighting styles based on what you need, or maybe what you don't need.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. I also love your cyborg warlock.
Oh, thanks. I like that.
I think
one
that
too.
was
That
was great. Just the way that was structured, how the mechanics work. It's something that doesn't exist in the game already, and that's what it seems to me, at least. Every week we're trying to create something that's fresh. It doesn't have to be a completely new idea every single time. I think that is probably too heavy of a burden for us to try and carry, to make something totally new. The way that you got to some of those mechanics was totally new.
Yeah, I think the cyborgs was so interesting because I think we both almost had really similar ideas about this idea of
very close.
How slow it had to take on. So we both were like, well, first it's your arms or your eyes or whatever else, and we did that in similar ways, but also they both did feel really unique narratively and felt like they were totally inspired by different ideas, and that inspiration played into the mechanics in, I think, really interesting ways.
So I think overall, it's strange how some weeks so similar.
Yeah.
Our creations are so similar.
Yeah.
And then other weeks, they're completely different with the exact same prompt. It's a joy to watch these unfold every week.
To see like the deadly sins, how much of a different tack you took on that one. Wild times.
In that vein, I would love to see what brand new absurd thing you have come up with today. I need some chaos.
It's bonkers. It's truly wild.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so we had a prompt once again for a monster that moves creatures around the battlefield. I thought about this for so long. What does this look like? Are you just teleporting people around? I came up with a monster that could teleport creatures and make them swap spaces. And then I was like, okay, but what about if we take a little more of a whimsical approach and do something sort of silly and goofy? Maybe this creature is almost like playing a game. It's like using the characters and the creatures on the battlefield like chess pieces, so it can move them around and we'll have everything be around weird chess mechanics or something like that, like start to use the meta grid on the board or whatever else. It didn't end up working out very well. So there is this RPG that I have on the shelf called Die by Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans. It's based on a comic book that they write together, and the plot of the comic book is that these people, regular people, get portaled into the TTRPG that they played when they were young, and then they take on these like characteristics of these TTRPG characters that they played. And so the RPG takes the same tack. There's really interesting mechanics and really interesting archetypes, and everybody has a dice that is like their character archetype die, and it's very cool. But the interesting thing is that the GM, is also a player character. They are playing a character who also comes in but serves as like the god or the master of this world. And so Specifically, this character can cheat. Because the character's in charge of the world, in charge of the rules, right? So there's a whole mechanic for allowing the GM to cheat, because, why wouldn't you be able to form reality to your own whims? Because this is a world that you created and brought other people into.
It's part of the game.
So that's a part of the game. So I thought, that's cool. How do I do that in D&D in a way that's fun and that creates something sort of interesting? So, I give you the Anarchist.
This is a very neat one-page write-up.
Neat.
If you'd like to pause the recording and head over to Patreon, you can access these for free and follow along with us as you listen. This looks great.
Thank you.
This is immediately appealing visually.
I like it a lot. This is an aggressively meta approach.
I love it.
So, I'll just start with my little, very small preamble. Yes, we'll get into it, my friend.
Yeah.
So, ancient legends have suggested that the rules that govern this world are fluid, malleable, and subject to the whims of beings beyond comprehension. We are but playthings of the gods, meant to bend to their crude games. But even the stickiest rules can be broken, and the tides of reality can change in an instant, if one is willing to relinquish any care for structure and order. So, we have the Anarchist, who is a medium humanoid of any chaotic alignment. It has an armor class of 10, plus its dexterity, we'll get into that, infinite hit points. Speed of 30 feet. Starting real hot here. Infinite hit points. That feels like a lot, right? The thing is that this thing
60
messes
feet of
with
true sight.
Messes with reality. Yeah, 60 feet of true sight.
This is fantastic.
All of its statistics start as an X. They are all blank. It has true sight to 60 feet. It speaks all languages. Has a proficiency bonus of +5. Its first trait is called Nebulous Nature. Any of the Anarchist statistics marked with an X are undefined at the start of the combat. Instead, the first time the Anarchist makes an ability check, attack roll, or saving throw, or is targeted with an attack, it first rolls 4d6 and subtracts the lowest number to determine its score in the relevant ability.
I love that.
Also, the first time that the Anarchist is forced to make a saving throw, it gains proficiency in that type of saving throw for the duration of the combat. So this thing is fluid. It changes.
That's so... There. I mean, as a DM... DMs out there can relate. I'm sure that you can as well. Anytime there's an NPC that pops up at random, it happens all the time. Your characters interact with somebody that you don't expect, or you fall into a combat that you don't expect, and you have to, use an NPC that doesn't have a stat block. The amount of times that I make up modifiers and ability score, ability scores in general, it's every session almost, and this is so Dungeon Master, right? This is the most indicative feature of a game master put into text that I've ever seen, where it's just as it happens, that's when you're deciding, and it could fluctuate session to session. This is great.
I decided. Its second trait is called Rule Breaker. At the start of each of its turns, the Anarchist can end any conditions afflicting it.
Fair.
It's poisoned, get rid of it. If it's blinded, don't care. If it's prone, I'm up now. I didn't even have to stand up.
You just float back up to your feet.
Yep. And then its final one, and this is the really tricky one, and this is the one that your players are going to have to figure out, is the Anarchy Aura. Creatures within 30 feet of the Anarchist can use an action to declare anything about reality. This new reality immediately becomes true, even if it breaks the game rules, upsets established lore, or creates contradictions or anachronisms.
Ooh.
Such contradictions or gaps in logic seem completely normal and logical to all creatures in the game world.
Wow.
This is the key to defeating this thing, because again, it has infinite hit points, but you get close enough to it, and you can also affect reality, and you can just decide
you now have
that
5
it's
hit
true.
points.
Yes, you decide oh, I don't think
Yeah.
so. And yeah, it's so this is just such a fiddly encounter that's being presented here. It's
Oh man, that's so good.
This is a wild time. This is not for new DMs. This is not for new tables. This is for people who have lots of trust and are ready for some weirdness.
I love this so much.
It's insanity.
Tell me about this action. Tell me
Okay,
about
so it
the
has
single
one
action
action.
on this stat block.
It has one action. It's called Impose Chaos. The anarchist defies the rules of the game and establishes a new order. Roll on the following chaos table to determine how the anarchist changes reality. Any changes incurred remain until the end of the current combat or until the anarchist rolls the same number again. So some of these will have effects that last for a while. So the chaos table is a D10 table.
These are some options.
They're wild.
Whoa.
So, option number 1, the anarchist collects all character sheets, shuffles them, and redistributes them at random. You're playing a new character now.
Amazing.
Option 2, the anarchist summons a random creature from the deck of illusions. This creature is not illusory and follows the anarchist's telepathic commands. Just, here's a monster. You're fighting that now. The anarchist removes any existing tactical map and environmental features, instantly transporting itself and all other creatures to a flat, blank plane and placing each one in an unoccupied space of its choosing.
Nice.
You're just taking all of the features off of the grid, and it's just like, nope, we are just on the grid now.
Yeah.
On a 4, the anarchist forces one creature to immediately re-roll its entire ability score array by rolling 4d6 and dropping the lowest number 6 times in order of strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. On a 5, the anarchist chooses one creature to make a saving throw of its choosing. Regardless of the result, the anarchist rolls 10d6 and says, interesting. There is no additional effect. That's my favorite one. I just want to know, this is my favorite one. Would you make a wisdom saving throw for me? Okay. Just sound of dice rolling. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then the whole entire table is just like, what is that? What is this? On a 6, the anarchist casts a random spell. I have provided a link to just a website that you can just click and it generates you a random spell entirely.
That's so fun.
Without expending any components. It chooses spellcasting ability when it rolls this feature the first time. Hey, this could be really fun, but it's like Metronome, like we were talking about the other week.
Right.
Where
it could be whatever.
You could accidentally cast Revivify. The anarchist targets one creature to roll a d4. On an odd result, the character gains 1 level in its current class, and on an even result, it loses 1 level in its current class.
Interesting.
Yep. The anarchist collects all magic items from player characters and redistributes them randomly. If an item requires attunement, it instantly attunes to the new wielder. On a 9, the anarchist chooses a new rolling method for all d20 rolls. It could be 5d4, 2d10, 1d100 divided by 5, or back to 1d20. And then on a 10, the anarchist blocks a specific type of action. So it can choose either a type of weapon attack, either melee or ranged, a single spell level, or a school of magic. No creatures can use the chosen feature or action for the duration. That's the table. It's so chaotic.
This is wild.
This would be the most insane session to run that I can ever imagine. And I just imagine the players being like, what is happening here? I don't know how to deal with this thing.
Right. How do I even damage this? How do I deal with what's going on? What is going on?
I actually took a lot of inspiration from your the way that you built your Rancor monster, specifically the possessed version. That it has 0 hit points. It doesn't take damage. Because you have to figure out that there is another way to beat this thing.
There is a specific mechanic. Yeah.
And I do kind of like that
great.
as an idea. This idea that you have to figure out the trick, and if I was DMing this, I would definitely try and present hints that reality is malleable. And in the meantime, just the craziest things you've ever seen are happening.
Right. You're going to be playing your friend's character with all of your items, some of your friend's items, casting random spells, fighting random monsters.
Yep.
Every turn. Totally not even close to mine.
It's the craziest thing I think I've ever made. It's truly unhinged.
I want to run this so badly.
It's so weird. And I decided to lean into the weird. I like it.
Yeah, I was just about to say it feels very Paper Mario.
Yeah.
Where like most of it happens within the world, but then every once in a while, like they'll just rip a piece of paper off of the page and use that.
Yeah.
Like if you chop down a tree, it just like folds off of the page. Like that stuff like that is so cool. It's so interesting and really difficult to adapt to D&D because it is such a structured kind of linear rule set, and this is a really great way to get around that.
If you feel like ignoring the rules, here you go. I didn't put in a CR because, again,
I know.
it's
what would it even have been?
What would
how
it be?
Can you even quantify that?
You cannot figure out what the DPR is for this creature because it just is, and
it can change.
Exactly.
It could be
you can't figure out the armor class.
Encounters. Yeah.
You can't figure out the HP. You can't figure out the stat array. You can't figure out any specific features that might affect the math.
Perfection. I love this.
It's a wild time.
In contrast to that,
give it to me.
Mine is very structured. There are specific rules that the pieces of this need to follow. If you would please open your document.
Yes.
I would love to present to you the Omni Magnet.
Okay. Ooh.
Omni Magnets, often used as security measures or battlefield control mechanisms. Their outward appearance resembles that of a huge overturned bucket. It's essentially a big rotating cylinder. It's hollow on the inside and can be operated manually by a set of controls within its shell or run automatically if commanded to do so. An Omni Magnet's thick metal exterior is lined with powerful arcane magnets. They can manipulate metal objects around it. Because of this, these constructs are often built within smaller spaces that allow for total control of an entire area. Also stored within an Omni Magnet's outer shell is a group of smaller deployable constructs called polarity units, which can be dispensed to provide more targeted defense. These creatures are made of solid metal and are equipped with a lightning rod for offensive action. These are optional turrets. They can be automated to guard an entryway, some type of medium-sized chamber. I thought maybe like a silo or an antechamber or something, somewhere that they can kind of have reach wherever you are within that area. To operate an Omni Magnet manually, a creature must be medium-sized or smaller and have an intelligence score of 13 or higher. Alternatively, if a creature does not meet the intelligence requirement but is proficient in any type of vehicle, they will be able to understand the controls with a DC 15 intelligence arcana check. 2 medium-sized creatures can fit inside of an Omni Magnet at one time, each operating a different area of functionality found within the Omni Magnet, within the stat block above. And you can see the options for magnet operation below, which I will circle back to in a second. So let's take a look at the actual stat block.
This is so good.
Thank you.
There was a moment where I almost was like, oh, I kind of want to make something like a vehicle, maybe. But then you did it. Then you did exactly that, and I'm so excited because I'm like, yeah, there's not enough vehicle stat blocks in the game,
it's true.
or vehicle adjacent things, right? Things that you can use as a turret. Because
control
I always think
from
about
the inside. Yeah,
I think about like playing Fire Emblem, and you can go and like operate the arcane turret, or you can operate the like big ballista. And like there's not enough options for like cool stat blocks for things like that in D&D.
Right.
This is great.
I totally agree. Let's get into the stat block. So this is the Omni Magnet. It is a huge construct, typically lawful alignment. I said that just because it can be constructed. So I suppose if anyone does use this in the game, it could mirror the alignment of its creator. That's how a lot of constructs operate that are built. It has an armor class of 15, 132 hit points, and a speed of 0 feet. It is built into the floor, so it cannot move. A strength of 19, dex of 1, con of 20, intelligence of 20, wisdom of 11, and charisma score of 3. It resists lightning damage, it's immune to poison and psychic, and it's immune to a whole slew of conditions with a proficiency bonus of 4. Some features here. It is built in. The Omni Magnet can't be moved by any means. It counts as a structure for the purpose of siege attacks.
Cool.
So it can be hit if there are siege monsters in play. It also has a magnetic field. The Omni Magnet emits a magnetic aura out to 50 feet, centered on its location, that is always active. Any creature that is wearing or made of metal and starts their turn within the magnetic field is pulled 5 feet towards the Omni Magnet. That is a static rule that always applies. You're always getting pulled in towards this thing.
Great.
Moving on to actions. It can use a magnetic rend action, which means all creatures within the Omni Magnet's field that are made of or wearing metal must make a DC 13 strength saving throw. On a failure, they are moved 5 feet in a direction of the Omni Magnet's choice. So as an action, it can move possibly everybody within 50 feet of it, as long as they are wearing armor or made of metal. Huge movement shift every turn.
Great.
They can also launch a polarity unit, which I also made a stat block for. We'll get to that in a second. It moves a polarity unit located within its field in a straight line towards a single target. It's a ranged weapon attack. Plus 5 to hit. It's a range of 30 feet, and it hits for 12 bludgeoning damage on average. And I did give it one legendary action that can use twice, regaining at the start of its next turn. This is called a focused rend. The Omni Magnet chooses one creature that's made of or wearing metal and moves them up to 20 feet in a straight line within its field, not provoking attacks of opportunity. So really it doesn't do much damage. It is a total battlefield controller through and through. I guess the polarity units do some damage if they're moved into a creature, but by and large this is a creature that is used to lock people down, force people back, and just make their time much more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, this is very cool, and you can absolutely see it as like being built into a like guard outpost or something like that, or a guard tower, just to be like, oh, you're coming in with a bunch of metal armor and weapons, just turn that guy up. Yeah, it's great. It's so cool. Very good. Very cool. Really, really rad.
Thank you. Moving back down to the manual operation. So if you have two medium creatures that are operating with inside, they can fill the role of propulsion tech or magnetic tech. The propulsion tech, during their turn, they can use 2 polarity unit attacks. So they can shift 2 of them if it is manually controlled. Or if they are the magnetic tech, they can use the magnetic rend or the focused rend actions, which in this case, both of them are actions instead of the focused rend being legendary.
Sure, yeah.
And if only one creature is operating the Omni Magnet, they can switch positions as a bonus action. So they can't operate both at once.
Sure, yeah. Makes sense. That's very cool.
Yeah, I thought of it kind of like I took inspiration from any FPS really. If you get into a vehicle, you have a driver and a gunner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can swap those positions, but it takes some action to do it. Then moving down to the second page here, I did make a brief stat block for the polarity units. It's a small construct, typically unaligned, armor class of 12, 15 hit points, a speed of 15 feet. Middling stats, the highest is a 14, so it's nothing crazy. It is vulnerable to thunder, so they are structures through and through.
Mm-hmm.
Immune to a few conditions, proficiency bonus of 1. Their only feature is attraction. The polarity unit gains a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls for each other polarity unit within 10 feet of it.
That's
no
great.
more than 4 bonuses. So that adds to the incentive. If you're operating this manually, you can just move a bunch of these around one creature, and they just start stacking up those bonuses. They can get pretty scary pretty quickly if you put 5 of them in a circle around the party.
That's so great.
They have 2 actions. They have a gridlock action, which allows it to cause its speed to be 0, its armor class to increase by 2 till the start of its next turn. While in this state, another creature must succeed on a DC 30 strength athletics check. in order to move it at all. And it also has a small lightning rod melee attack, +2 to hit for 5 lightning damage. And this can only be used if it is within the Omni Magnet's field. So a lot of it has to do with staying within that 50 feet of the large magnet to have any viability at all. But yeah, this is the Omni Magnet. It can move creatures in a 50-foot radius pretty much every turn, as long as they are wearing or made of metal.
I like this a lot as, it's just, again, I think this creates so many fun opportunities for encounters where, like, if your party is trying to infiltrate something and this is in their way, that could be, can inspire all kinds of creative ways around this. Like, are you going to forego metal armor so that you don't have to deal with this? But then perhaps the guard gets called in and, like, you're fighting without having to deal with this thing, but with way less armor, and your weapons are like, you're using sticks and spells and whatever. Like,
yeah.
But then also the idea of taking this and the party utilizing it as a, like, defensive turret in their own way, if they're trying to defend or keep something. I think of all these FPSs and things, especially I used to play so much Halo back in the day, and a huge part of certain maps is like, can you and your team get over to this turret and, like, manage the battlefield? And so like, it's fighting over that real estate becomes a huge part of the combat, which this is a great opportunity for. I think it's great. I'm a big fan.
Thank you, man.
I have one question. What happens, and is there anything that happens if somebody wearing or made of metal gets right up against the Omni Magnet? Are they restrained there?
So this is what I took out because I didn't think it was 100% relevant. I assume that the Omni Magnet would just be able to push it away, or they would be the new targets for it to move around with its rending. I had a feature in there: if you had a certain amount of polarity units in play within the field, that nobody made of metal or wearing metal could get within 15 feet of the magnet, because it was just too strong. The resistance was too strong. I as I was looking at it, it didn't seem like it made much of a difference. I think because you asked about it, maybe I'll go back in and add that as part of the description. Maybe not in the actual stat block. It felt like it was a little bit too, for what it was, it felt too complex, adding that extra mechanic in. But I think I will add that back in as a third paragraph here or something, because that is valid. That makes total sense. If it's strong enough to move creatures around the battlefield at 50 feet, if somebody gets right up on top of it, they probably should stick.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, especially for if you start your turn within 50 feet of it, you're pulled 5 feet closer to it. But once that distance is closed, can you even attempt to move away from it? If you're right up on it and you start your turn and it's like, okay, I would be pulled 5 feet closer, but I'm already, I'm basically locked to it now.
I think I had it at a DC 30. I think I had that same strength check. That it would take to move the polarity units. I took that straight from the immovable rod. Yeah. In total transparency, if something that is so magically locked, any normal creature would not be able to do it. I think that's something that I will add. That is a good.
I think you could just add it, like, as an additionally on the magnetic field trait, just to be like, if a creature starts its turn and cannot be pulled any closer, they become restrained with a DC 30 escape check.
Yeah,
that's it. Like,
That's going in there for sure.
And then if somebody wants to get that person off of the thing, then you can try and get in there, use the focused rend then to push them away instead. You reverse the polarity and it hurls them outward.
Push them out, yeah.
And then, they can try and move around again. But I think, anybody who's dealt with a heavy magnet knows that you can deal with some of the resistance, but once it gets stuck on there, it's really hard to actually separate the magnet from the thing that it is grabbing at.
Agreed.
But I do think this is just so fun, and I could absolutely build it into all kinds of heist or infiltration scenarios really seamlessly.
It did feel very corporate. You're going into infiltrating the headquarters, right? And this is the first thing that you encounter right when you get past the security check. Is this giant magnet that's gonna keep pushing you away?
This is the big, bank vault sort of security system, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or art dealer or whatever it is, I think there's a campaign that I started recently that's much more noir and gray morality, but trying to be a little bit more episodic. But we started with the whole organization, this underground halfway resistance, halfway organized crime situation got raided, and a bunch of the people either got scooped up by the shady secret police or maybe died. But one of the things I've been thinking about is it would be cool to run a prison break for that campaign at some point when they find out where some of their comrades have been locked away in, This is great for that. This is absolutely going in there whenever I decide to run it, because I think this is just such a good this would absolutely be in a high security prison to deter a huge band of armored warriors from coming in and doing anything, right? It's just nope, no, we're gonna take all of your metal off of you, and if you have any, this thing will know.
Well. We've gotten past our presentations today. Should we roll to see what we're going to be making next week?
Absolutely. I think it's your turn to roll this time around.
I believe that
I've got our big homebrew prompt list up, and if you have a prompt, something you'd like to see us make, feel free to reach out to us on email. We are at collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com. You can also find both of us on TikTok. I'm over there at Sir Dr. K. Michael is there at Michael_Barlos. Or you can come on over and join our Patreon for free. See these creations that we made today. And also, you can join up. You can be a part of our community Discord, where we also get a bunch of prompts from. So come on in, check it out. Tell us to make some stuff.
I have my D20 ready. Here we go. Dan, today that is going to be a 2.
A 2. Ooh. Oh, it's going to be a big one. From Blood Moon Orange on TikTok, we have
I know
a prompt for a complete run of brand new druid spells. 1 through 9. Cantrips if we want them, but I think 1 through 9 is probably going to be enough.
I think 1 through 9 is more than sufficient.
Yeah. Oh,
Druid spells specifically is an interesting way to go. Obviously, 1 through 9 had to be a full casting class, so that limits the possibilities. But that's interesting. Wizard opens up so many other possibilities. Druid infers that they are naturally based, more primal.
Yes.
And that is very cool.
I am interested to know where I'm going to... Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to take inspiration from this particular situation.
No idea. I have no idea.
Oh, man. And we haven't made any spells either. So
No.
this is new.
What a
for
way
us.
to dive right into the deep end.
Make a whole bunch of them. That's going to be fun. I'm excited to see what your approach to spells is, because we haven't done that yet.
This is something that we have not done.
That's great. I'm really excited for that.
I was thinking the other day of things that we haven't made, and I thought about spells, but I also thought we haven't made any playable species yet either.
Ooh, yeah, that's true. So
That's
yeah,
one area that we have not tackled.
if y'all have an idea for a playable race, that's a prompt we would absolutely love to add to our list here.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah. But I'm excited to see what spells we come up with. We're both going to be making 9 of them, so that's going to be a whole 18 spells, brand new and fresh. Hopefully, we don't have too much crossover. We probably will have a little bit, but who knows?
I'm sure there will be some at some point, but I also expect some pretty extreme deviation, especially for the higher level ones.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for recording today with me, Michael. I had an absolute blast. What a good time.
Same.
And thank you all for listening to us talk about movable monsters.
Dan,
Huh?
do you have anything to say to the listeners before we say goodbye today?
He's switching it up on me again. Michael, you know that I can always come up with something to say to the people before we say goodbye.
I do know that.
Here's just a little piece of table advice that's come up recently at my tables, that I would encourage all DMs and new tables, especially if you're getting into a session 0 soon or something like that. Secrets are great. Having your character have secrets and parts of their backstory that they don't share openly is great. But the best part about secrets is when they come out in dramatic and interesting ways. The best parts of those stories are when you can reveal those things in a moment where it feels satisfying. And so talking about those things above table, making sure that all of the players are a part of creating those special and interesting moments of dramatic tension and revelation and release is always going to make it better. It's very hard when you keep your secrets close to your chest and your other players don't know about them, and so they can't help you generate moments for those things to come up organically. So communication above table and planning those things out, even in advance, it might feel like that's, cutting something out of the tension. It's detracting from the moment. It's not. It's creating more opportunities for everybody to be more involved in the development of the story together. I have a table right now that's really good at that, and it's so rewarding. So I encourage you to be a little more open when it comes to your character secrets at the table.
I could not agree more. The more your table knows, the more information they have, the bigger the reveal will be, the harder it will hit. And that's 100% accurate. Thank you for that, Dan. And thank you all for listening. We appreciate it as always. Until next time, this has been the College of Creation. Please be good to yourselves and have a great day. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, it's Michael. Thanks for listening to this episode of the College of Creation. If you want to see our creations from this episode and our past episodes, you can find those for free on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/College of Creation Pod. And if you decide to become a patron, you'll also automatically get access to any revised versions of the things we've created, plus our patron Discord, and bonus chats with Dan and myself. You can send any of your own homebrew prompts or questions to collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com, and our music is by Fuserwolf. You can check out his tunes on Bandcamp and Spotify. As always, thank you so much for listening.